Tom Hunsinger. I'm the managing partner of the Texas CIO, and this is our Tech Talk series online version. So we'll be hosting these periodically on different subject matter and different subject matter experts, and it's really meant to be a pithy conversation, keeping it to 30 minutes. We don't want death by PowerPoint, and I don't want to be the teacher in Charlie Brown going wah wah wah. We want to keep it germane to your endeavors and give you offer real world feedback and experiences from Ed and I. And so, again, Tom Hunsinger, I'm the managing partner of the Texas CIO. 20 years in IT infrastructure, primarily in high availability networks and cybersecurity and telecommunications, with a people first mentality, always recognizing that with any solution or any problem or any challenge, it's really the people that make the difference. So my co-host today is Ed, and I'll let Ed introduce himself.
Thank you, Tom. Good morning, everyone. My name is Ed Gustenhoven. I'm a career CIO living in Dallas right now, originally from the Northeast. My background is predominantly consumer packaged goods, and from there, predominantly adult beverage, bottling, beverage, food and beverage, and things like that, with stops at chemical manufacturing, high-tech semiconductor manufacturing, but really just, all around, like most of us here, all around IT guy. Been there, a lot of ERP implementations, a lot of transformation, building high-performing teams and things like that. So happy to be here and greatly appreciate the invite, Tom.
Yeah, no, I really appreciate you joining, Ed. You have a wealth of experience and can really put context around some of the things that we're going to be talking about today. So just briefly, we're going to review who the Texas CIO is. We're going to cover why it matters when these projects don't meet expectations regarding cybersecurity and IT initiatives, why these projects fail a lot of times, and then how to avoid that with some certain best practices and disciplines and structure you can put in place. We have a great case study from Hertz, which is very apropos to the content today. It was a little while back, but I think you'll find it relevant, and then we'll offer some parting thoughts. But who is the Texas CIO? Well, I started the Texas CIO about 5 years ago, and it really grew over 23 and 24. So we are an organization of over 1,400 Texas IT leaders. And the whole point behind the group is to build relationships, build trust, and network together to be able to share experiences, best practices, thought leadership, build that community so there's trust involved where you can vet vendors and technologies and really foster community collaboration. Over the last several weeks, we've had some great engagement from the community where we had members come out with certain IT projects and challenges, looking for feedback, not just from Chat GPT and other AI, but real world experiences that they could relate to. And the memberships stepped up and offered that feedback where these members were able to guide through these engagements without having to stub their toe, fall down, make a mistake to learn. So that's the whole premise behind the group, and we're there to support each individual member's growth while collectively enhancing the expertise of the entire group. Hope to be up over 2,000 by the end of the year, but if you want to learn more, just please reach out to me separately. So why we're here today and why does it matter? We're talking about why IT projects and cybersecurity initiatives seldom meet expectations. According to Gartner and the Standish Group's GAS reports, only 32% of these kinds of projects are considered successful. So that means 68% don't meet expectations. That's a lot of heat, light, and energy that is wasted, a lot of wasted cycles, morale busters. So out of that 68%, 49% are typically over budget, they're late, only deliver part of the value that was the expected outcome. So that's critical there. And then 19% just outright fail, which means you have to do not pass go back to start, and recoup and redo everything all over again. So that's the metrics behind it. But what is the impact to the business, right? And so depending on whether it's an IT initiative or a cybersecurity initiative, organizational downtime or business disruption, right, could impact that organization, just depending on the size of the company and the scope of the project, anywhere from 100 grand to 1.5 million, right? And if it is a cybersecurity initiative, you have potential cybersecurity incidents, you got data breaches, you could be exposed, and that leads to even greater impact, anywhere from 250 to 2.5 million. And most small businesses, right, and even medium-sized businesses, they don't recover. You have an impact like that, they seldom recover. So it's critical to get this right the first time. And then the obvious answer is you have to, especially with the 19% that fail outright, you have to restart the project, rework it, re-implement it. You have to get buy-in from the organization again. You got to get that trust the second time, right? Which is hard to do. And then that goes into whatever your project cost was initially. You could double that or get it up to 150% of the original cost. So it's significant. And then there's the brand impact and damage, right? So loss of customer trust, revenue, could be anywhere from 100 grand to 2 million. And Ed, I know in your experience, you've probably seen or been aware of many people in the industry that had these kinds of issues. Maybe you could put some context around that.
Yeah, absolutely, Tom. And I'm sure we've all experienced, right? So, when you say project fails, it could be a broad array of why the project fails, right? So, I want to highlight one of the most persistent issues that undermines IT projects, transformation initiatives, and that's really just the lack of clear project objectives and business goals. A lot of times projects are initiated on a perceived need. We hear things like, we need to upgrade our ERP, or we need to get ISO certified. And while those are all valid initiatives, they're really grounded in clear articulation of business values or like the success criteria. So what happens next is pretty predictable. Technical teams move forward, defining scope and deliverables, without fully aligning with the business. And as Tom stated, with these facts here, the result is we completed the project, but the business impact isn't clear, or we're reworking things, and worse off, we're risking credibility and momentum.
Yep, thank you. Yeah, and you dovetailed nicely into some of the things that we'll be talking about here a little bit later. But the beginning of any type of IT project, cybersecurity initiative, small misalignments at the beginning of any of these projects could create huge gaps by the end of the project, depending on its complexity and then how many business units it touches. And they have these small differences or degrees of separation are significant, and they have compounding effects, right? So if you have a smaller project, pretty straightforward, not complex. Maybe it's you need new internet, high availability access for 10 sites. Well, that has some impact on the organization, and you could be off mark a little bit. So you're a little off center, right? But if you look at more complex engagements and longer term implementations, ERP, cybersecurity initiatives, that compounding effect creates huge gaps in expectations and deliverables by the end of that project, right? And that's what you see a lot of the times is very loose scoping, as Ed mentioned, project definition, business outcomes, leads into these small degrees of separation at the beginning that just compound and get greater as we go along. So we looked at a variety of different reasons why projects fail. And we felt that these are probably the top 5 reasons, right? And so we'll go through these in more detail. But Ed touched on the first one: lack of clear project objectives, business goals, business outcomes, requirements. This leads into poor vendor selection because you don't have a tight scope. So you're looking at every vendor under the sun, whether they're appropriate for the project. You go through the cycles of interviewing these vendors. Salespeople come along, even if they're not a fit, they're chasing you down for the next 12 to 24 months. And then once you get into the planning of the project, not a lot of structure is behind that and forethought, and therefore there's not a lot of resource allocation. There's a lot of projection where folks are looking at their vendor or partner to solve all problems, IT under the sun, and that's not what they do. They solve a subset of some of those problems under the sun, but that gap is huge. And then executive sponsorship is huge to get buy-in within our organization, get the levels of trust there, and being able to get the right resources. And then lastly, change management. And that's all about people and finding their why, right, and communicating effectively. So let's touch on the first one. And Ed started on this, but I'll hand it over to you, Ed, and really kind of drill down on it if you could.
Absolutely. Thanks, Tom. And again, the lack of clear project objectives and business goals are really key drivers to failure. So how do we avoid that? First, it's really having both business and technical stakeholders aligned early in the process. It's not about collaboration, it's about really alignment, making sure you've got alignment. When both sides are at the table from the start, you can ensure that the project scope reflects actual business priorities and not just the technical needs. And second, we need to set SMART goals around this. Goals that are specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, time bound. We all know what SMART goals are, but without that clarity, you'll get that project drift. With clarity, we gain focus, accountability, a shared understanding of what success looks like. For example, as I stated earlier, instead of saying implement the new ERP system, a goal would be implement Oracle Fusion by Q4 to enable real-time financial reporting and reduce monthly close time by 50%. A very, very specific goal. That's a business outcome. It's not just a technical deliverable. And then finally, making sure those project metrics tie directly to business outcomes. So whether it's revenue growth, risk reduction, cost savings, improved customer experience, we should be able to draw a straight line between what those initiatives are and the value that they'll generate. So as CIOs and IT leaders, this is where we elevate our role, from being just that technical operator, that technical practitioner, to more of a strategic partner, a business partner. It's not about delivering systems and technology. It's about delivering impact to the business. And it really, again, I'll go back. It starts with defining those clear, aligned, and measurable goals.
Nice. And to kind of steal a phrase from back, I think, of World War II, loose lips sink ships, loose project goals and objectives sinks companies.
Absolutely.
Awesome. Thank you, Ed. So this lends itself right into vendor alignment and partner selection, right? So if you have a loosely defined set of business outcomes and project requirements, you're going to get a wide array of vendors and partners that you're going to look at. And then that lends itself right into emotional buying, right? Where you're looking at the features of the Maserati, even though you came in there to look at an Kia, right? You start looking at things that have a lot of sizzle, a lot of functionality, but aren't germane to the project scope, right? And so it takes you away from that initial project alignment. So having the appropriate vendor selection tied with the project goals is important, right? And then communicating effectively to that vendor those goals and outcomes, right? I've had several companies within the Texas CIO go out and do a variety of different projects. Some are going out to do MSP replacement, right? Where they're coming out and getting a managed service provider. They're looking at the savings they can get outsourcing these types of projects. And on paper, it looks great, right? And so they pull the trigger, they go down and then downsize the IT team and project that the new MSP is going to take care of everything IT related. And that's not what they do. Again, they'll come in, they'll do a set of functions for you, but then people forget, hey, what about onboarding new customers and getting them laptops and getting all the appropriate software on there? Or what about laptop replacement and a variety of different things that you projected on that vendor that they never contracted for? So again, tight scope leads to better vendor selection and outcomes there. So you got the project, you got the initiative, you think you have the right vendor and partner, right? Now you got a plan. So Ed, maybe you can jump on in here and help me from your experience how you attack this.
Absolutely, Tom. And as we're going through this, it's just another critical challenge that we face. Especially in complex IT initiatives or big enterprise initiatives, they are complex, and we've all been there, right? So, the big challenge we have is that incomplete planning and the resource allocation, as Tom mentioned. So it's incredibly common to underestimate the time, the cost, the effort required to execute a large program, whether it's an ERP modernization, a network implementation, a cybersecurity initiative, or just a general digital transformation. We tend to focus on the what and jump too quickly to the how. So what we often miss is that the depth of planning, that cross-functional impact that's required before that execution even begins. So Gartner recently reported that 55% of projects experience scope creep, and one of those top causes is poor or incomplete planning at the outset. So what's the result there? We run out of time, we run out of budget, we lose stakeholder confidence, and that's something that Tom mentioned early on as well. So how do we avoid falling into that trap? We need to conduct true feasibility analysis, the reality of it, right? It's not just about the technical readiness. It's about evaluating business impact, change capacity, resource bandwidth, both IT and in the business. Can the business absorb the change? Are dependencies identified? Have we stress test assumptions and things like that? And the list goes on and on there. Second is building that realistic timeline and budget, and include the contingencies around there, because we all know things can and will go wrong. So we often try to please the stakeholders with real aggressive deadlines, but if those aren't achievable, we're setting the team up for failure. So budgeting should include licensing, software, but change management, communications, and training and testing as well. So resource planning is really key here. Too often we assume the business subject matter experts will find time to participate, but they already have full-time day jobs, and without dedicated capacity, the quality suffers and the timeline slips right off the bat. And then third, planning for risk. Just not reacting to it, is having a plan. So every plan should include risk management, mitigation strategies, and have that documented. It's clearly defined escalation paths, response protocols, decision checkpoints throughout the project that should be baked into the project plan. So you can't afford to wait for an issue to emerge. We need to anticipate where things may go off the rails and have a plan ready for that. And then finally, that communication plan is just as important as a resource plan. The project team needs clarity. Business users need awareness. Sponsors need insight. So you need to build those communication protocols into the plan, not as an afterthought, but a core work stream. So really, to summarize this point, is start with feasibility and impact assessment. Build plans that are honest, not optimistic. Allocate dedicated people from IT and from the business, not just names on a chart. Make sure they're fully engaged, and embed the risk and communication strategies from day one, from the start, the onset of the project. So if you can shift from reactive to proactive planning, we can dramatically increase the odds of success and deliver these programs that actually achieve the business objectives on time and within budget.
Nice. Yeah, I've seen so many times that organizations plan effectively, but they leave out that communication and escalation protocols, and they forget plans don't implement themselves. People implement plans, and some people don't see eye to eye or communicate effectively. And so you can't get burdened down in that. You got to find a way around it to progress the plan. So no, good.
Absolutely. And having that outlined at the onset kind of just brings the emotion bit out of it as well, right? So you have an agreement, a contract, if you will, with the business at the onset.
Yep. Awesome. So number 4 is adequate executive C-level engagement, right? And so 1, to be able to get the resources, and 2, to get organizational wide buy-in is critical to have a C-level sponsor. Now that depends on the size and scope of the project, right? If it's impacting a single business unit, then you may just need that department lead. But if it's impacting the business units across the organization, you need to move upstream and get C-level sponsorship. And then you got to communicate with folks and find other champions beyond that C-level person, because you have folks out there that can't say no to the project, but they can bad about the project if you don't give them buy-in, right? And so bringing on those informal champions, the C-level sponsorship and engagement will give you the resources you need to be able to implement the plan effectively. So change management is critical, and kind of dovetails into that sponsorship from the C-level. But Ed's gone through many projects and done this multiple times, and probably has areas that he can improve on, and other success stories. So Ed?
Absolutely, Tom. And just to reiterate what you just said, having that business sponsor and the communication, that's really all about the change management. And that can make or break any transformational project. So we've all seen it. A technically solid solution is deployed, it works as it was designed, but it fails to deliver the expected impact for the business. And why is that? Because people didn't adopt it. They didn't trust it, they didn't understand it, or they just simply reverted to old habits. I've been doing it like this for 20 years. We hear that all the time. So the reality is technology doesn't drive the transformation, people do. And people are creatures of habit. And when you change workflows, tools, policies, even with the best intentions, that resistance is inevitable. Organizations with excellent change management are 6 times more likely to meet their business objectives. It's not a nice to have, it's a strategic advantage. So best practices around change management is engagement early. Engage the user community early. It means getting input during planning, involving them in testing, listening to the pain points, and being there on the floor there. But more than that, it's identifying informal leaders, the people that are really going to be the change champions, if you will, on the business side. They're the trusted voices that others will follow. If they're on board, adoption accelerates, and that's just kind of natural human behavior there. Second is clearly communicating the why. People need to understand, not just what's changing, but why it matters and how it will improve their work, how it'll save time, reduce frustration, help them be more successful. And if they don't see value for themselves, the change is a burden. It's why is IT making me change, instead of what's the opportunity to do things better. And then thirdly, it's investing in the training and support, and not just the go live, but just the ongoing, the post implementation. Too often, training is a checkbox. Yep, checked it, we did it. A few webinars, some documentation, and we move on. But the real adoption happens when employees feel confident they're using the tools or the new system, for instance, and they're supported and heard. So you need to build in the office hours, the FAQs, the feedback loops, and let them know you're here to help. Include them in the process. Listen, informally and formally. So to be clear, the change management it's not just a soft skill, but I think the communication part of it is a soft skill. And that's where I mean the informal bit of it, right? But it's a strategic discipline. It has to be embedded in the project plan. It has to have dedicated resources, milestones, and KPIs. So just to summarize that, it's engaging people early, and that's making them feel they're part of the project. Communicate the why clearly and often throughout the project, and then provide the training and support training and support to help them thrive through that change process. So if we do that, then the users will turn from resistance into advocates to support the project or the initiative or the change and deliver outcomes that actually stick.
Yeah, I totally agree, Ed. It's an intentional discipline, and so many times I've seen email notification to a company-wide email block, right? Yeah. We're doing change X by time Y, and that's it.
Yep.
And then people in a vacuum, they lend themselves to all kinds of things. So
Absolutely. And email is not communication. It's a cog in the communication process and the change process, but involving the user community, rolling up your sleeves and being, in the manufacturing world and being on the shop floor or out in the warehouse during implementation and listening to people and finding the pain points and really being that advocate of change will work wonders.
Yeah, totally agree. Totally agree. So Hertz a few years back, this is a little dated, but I think it was apropos to the content today, wanted to revitalize and rethink their website, right? They want to make it more customer facing, integrating mobile apps, making it more user friendly, and really try to compete with digital first challengers like Uber and Lyft, right? And so their goal was to build a modern, responsive website with mobile apps, improve that user experience, right? Faster efficiencies and booking and personalization, better localization and brand differentiation, and create a platform that was easy to expand, scale, and maintain. Well, what went wrong? It went wrong right from the beginning with the scoping and the project requirements. It was very loose. It wasn't well defined. The business outcomes weren't defined. And so when they started looking for vendors to help implement the solution, they were projecting what they didn't document would be the outcomes. The vendors and salespeople, yes, we can do that. Of course we can. We can do that. Yes. And therefore, it went into a lot of emotional purchasing decisions and acquiring a partner that didn't align with their intended scope, requirements, and business outcomes, right? So it went bad from the beginning. It was compounded by poor project governance, project management, creating that plan, allocating the right resources. Very apparent here by the outcome that they didn't have a communication escalation path when things went wrong. You probably had blocks of employees that were fighting amongst each other, pointing fingers. You did it. You didn't tell me you wanted that. And it resulted in a lawsuit for $32 million of damages. They had to restart everything from scratch. So brand recognition for both companies were bad, right? The vendor didn't ask enough questions and get the scoping appropriate, but the Hertz team didn't communicate it properly. So this is the perfect example of why the initial part of the project, the scoping, requirements, business outcomes, need to be very tight and align with that vendor selection. Because you go awry here, then the rest of you got to pull 4 aces out of the rest of it to be able to win that hand. But Ed, what do you think about this situation?
Yeah, unfortunately, Tom, this happens more often than not. Without that, the overall governance and the things that we just talked about, we've all seen this, and I've seen this multiple times in my career as well. Without having that clear objective, without having that formal structure, the project approach, the communication, the business alignment, you're destined for failure. And this is, like I said, unfortunately, one example of many. And I'm sure every one of us on this Teams call here has another story just like this.
Yeah. Well, awesome. Again, appreciate everybody joining today. Some takeaways that we want to leave you with, right, is these IT projects, cybersecurity initiatives are the most important investments that an organization can make. And the failure rate and not meeting expectation rates aren't inevitable. It just takes a lot of discipline, structure, and planning at the beginning to make sure that you scope the project appropriately, have the right vendors aligned with that project, and that small degrees in that first 2 steps of separation leads into just very large gaps and a lot of unhappy C-level folks. But if you want to learn more about how the Texas CIO can help with these initiatives, We have a team of engineers. Then we have the community, like Ed's a part of, to help get real world feedback. And together, we've created some very good outcomes for the Texas CIO members. So just reach out to me separately, and we can open it up. I know it's 12 o'clock, but I appreciate everybody joining today. And Ed, any parting thoughts?
No, just appreciate you inviting me here, Tom. This is a great subject. Learn from it, live it, and feel free to reach out to, like Tom said, myself. There's a big community, Tom or myself. There's a large community here. Discussions. Take advantage of it. Take advantage of this forum that you've got and other resources that are out there to talk through things and learn, because we're always learning.
Awesome. Well, appreciate you folks, and look forward to connecting at one of our events. We host these Tech Talk series, whether they're in person or online. We try to find some neat venues, good subject matter, good speakers. Our Breakfast Club series is super popular, less formal. Get down, break bread around table, around a breakfast table, and get to know each other and build that trust, because you don't want to share until you trust people to know. And so that's the catalyst of the group again. And then we also do other networking events. And one I like to highlight here a little bit is our IT MVP Award. It gives Texas CIO IT leaders the ability to go out and recognize somebody on their team for an outstanding contribution. We'll come in and celebrate that individual, cater lunch, make that third-party award from the Texas CIO, and the morale that it builds and team chemistry that it builds is just awesome. Every time I leave one of these luncheons, the smiles from ear to ear, and they're taking that trophy and putting it on their desk front and center, and it stays there. So I know a lot of organizations focus on C-level folks, and it's well-deserved, but there's a whole team of people underneath them, and they help build the success of any IT organization. So again, I want to thank everybody for coming out. We kept it pithy. Please reach out if you want to learn more, and look forward to connecting with you folks next time.
Thank you, Tom. Thanks, everyone.